100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that the creature moved would not be unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in
just
its own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it was standing out there. I'm out here
It
looking through
looked
the
like
window
a
now and I
vehicle.
don't see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better...
evil.
Sure.
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9" up.
Do you
Many
see
of
him
the
now,
cases
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who
he's
says
gone.
she
He's
has been
big.
Faded out.
abducted since childhood.
Reality. I was just
what I remember
being brought up this
through,
tunnel of
my
light,
wall
right?
came being
Out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel, I
And I
just
ran between them
noticed
and ran
parts
out
of my
of the
life that
room
wouldn't
to my
even occur to me to
mother's
remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
being
never
brought
told
up,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it
And so then I came to the end of this tunnel and noticed there was a man that first searched me at first as
a
a place
mist or a fog
and
kind
I
of
saw
moving.
mountains that had
The
died.
action, the
That
motion caught my
then
eye. It
the
actually
wizard,
started
without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me
form.
and said,
The
struggle
idea of the
too
Grim
young to
Reaper
die.
went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me. And I really felt.
Hey everybody, and
was
welcome to Real
demonic.
Supernatural
It was something very
Encounters.
evil.
For my guest today, I have Wendy, and she'll be telling a few of her paranormal supernatural experiences. But before she gets to that, Wendy, could you give a brief bio about yourself?
Right, my name's Wendy. I'm 52. I am from Manchester, England. I live with my husband Robert and our 2 dogs. I'm an RAD ballet student. Working in property and legal up until last year. I unfortunately lost my job due to the COVID. My great grandfather was Lakota Sioux. He came to the UK with the Buffalo Bill Wild West show, and he settled in Manchester for a while, where I actually still live at the moment. I have had experiences over the years, in between, but they have happened sort of fairly consistently.
All right, Wendy. Well, I guess if you're ready, you could start with your first experience and just tell them in order if you want to.
I can tell you a bit about the flat where we used to live if you're interested, are you?
Yeah, I'm interested in any stories you got.
Oh, right, okay. I mean, I could probably end up, because like I say, I've had a few things over the years. So yeah, when we first started together, we rented a year. And it was quite big. It had 2 beds. And you were in place in the flat, and you always felt like somebody was there. Never actually saw anything, but you always felt like somebody was there. I don't know if you've ever had anything like that, have you? If you feel like somebody stood there, but you can't see them. Yeah, and it was this particular spot in the flat. Nowhere else you could be in any other rooms. It was fine. It was just this particular area. Like I say, in all the time we lived there, we never ever discussed it with each other. Probably because we were in the early stages of our relationship, and we'd not really talk sort of paranormal stuff and things like that, because you may be always a bit worried that you might put the other person off or something like that, if they're not the same as you. But it was always during the night. You'd sort of get up in the night to go to the toilet, and you'd always feel there was somebody stood on the side of the door. And you'd go like that with the door, and you'd sort of want to fling it open, and you'd expect to see somebody stood there, and you sort of, right, who's behind the door? Fling it open, nobody there. And like I say, all the time we lived there, we never ever talked about it. And it was when we got our first house, and we were like one night about the flat, and I thought, right, I'll mention it. So I said, and I said, you know, we lived in the flat. Yeah. I said, did you ever feel like? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, where? And he said it was in the hall outside the toilet, and that was the exact spot. If he'd said anywhere else, the kitchen, living room, any of the bedrooms, but yeah, and that was where we both it, and we always used to feel like somebody was there. Never actually saw anything. We used to get where, like, your keys would turn up missing. You'd put your keys down, they'd gone, you know, and then you find them in some like really obscure place where there's no way on earth you would have put. And then it was like, the keys? No, I haven't. Well, you must have done because I put them there. Don't know whether it was this particular thing that then also like playing a bit of joke on you that things would go missing. And then I think the keys one time they turned up in the fridge. I mean, who on earth would put keys in the fridge? But yeah, we used to get like my engagement ring used to go missing. I'd take it off to do the washing up. I'd go back to get it. It would be gone. One time I found it in one of my shoes, you know, somewhere that you know that you just absolutely would not put it. So maybe it was something that was a little playful and like playing on you, you know, but yeah, we did have that. And then once we moved out, you know, we never had that again where you down and go. It was just being a little bit playful, or although it's annoying at this. So yeah, more recent things I've had, I've seen objects move on their own, which is, I'll be honest with you, that's quite scary. Because I've never had anything like that before. The last one happened only probably a couple of months ago. I was lying in the bath one afternoon, like you do, you just sit back, you relax. We've got a corner shower unit, my husband's towel was draped over it. And I was just lying in the bath relaxing, and I saw the corner of the towel moving. And I just thought, spit. And then there's that part of your mind that just thinks there must be a bit of a draft. But there weren't any windows open. We've got double glazed windows. The window was shut. There weren't any windows open on the landing. And then I thought, well, surely if it was the wind, all of the towel would have been moving. And it was just one corner. It was almost like somebody was playing with it, like somebody had picked up the corner and they were moving it. And it did it, and it stopped. And then it did it again. And it was almost like I thought, is somebody trying to get my attention here? And then it did it, and it stopped. And then there's a part of me that thought, you know, shall I start saying, is somebody here in the bathroom? But I'll be honest with you, so I just sort of left it. But I've got no explanation for it. Like I say, there was no draft, and if there had been a draft coming in, it would have moved all of the towel, and it was the corner that was closest to me. And if it was a draft, it would have been all of the bottom of it or all of the towel. But there weren't any windows open. The door was closed, but something was moving the corner of the towel.
That's so crazy.
The time it happened before that, and weirdly enough, my husband, he put a ghost app on his phone, and we have used that a few times. I must admit, we've used it in the house, and we went to a restaurant one time and we used it in there just to see if anything sort of came up. But weirdly enough, that very same night, in fact, yeah, it was that night we went to the restaurant. We were getting ready to go out. I'd been in the shower first and I was getting ready. And then my husband had been in the shower, he was getting ready, and he was going around sort of with his phone. And I said to him, what are you doing? He said, I've got the ghost app on my phone. And he said, it's picking something up in this room. I was like, you sure? So he started asking it some questions, and he said, you know, who are you? Why are you here? And I'll tell you what, my blood ran cold, because he said, who are you? And it came up and it said Alice. Now, Alice was my mum's name. But believe it or not, Robert didn't know that, because I didn't really have a relationship with my mum. And I didn't have a really very nice upbringing. So I don't really sort of talk a lot about my family, and I don't have any contact with them. So the fact he didn't even know, and this, out of all the names that could have come up, it said Alice. Now, that was my mum's name. And he said, what do you want, or why are you here? It was something like that. And she said, my eyes are empty. Now I know that my mum was blind in one of her eyes from birth. Now I don't know if that's a coincidence. So anyway, we went out for a meal that night. We came back. I was stood at the dressing table and I was taking my jewellery off to put it away. And on top of I wore this particular necklace and earring set that I've got. And on top of it is, I've got like this, a glass snow globe. And it's on top of my little jewellery box. So I took the snow globe off, set it down so I could open my jewellery box. I was taking my jewellery off and the snow globe moved on its own. And it was just literally a little, it was like that. It didn't go all the way across, but it was just like a quick shift from left to right. It was left to right, yeah. I put it down, it went, just moved like that, just a little bit. But it definitely moved. It was enough that I could see it. Probably moved, what, a few inches, couple of inches. And at first I thought I must have put it on top of something and it shifted, but it wasn't on top of anything. It was just on a flat wooden surface on the dressing table, but it definitely moved. And that was a couple of years ago that happened. So those are the two occasions when I've seen objects move on their own.
Okay, now what ghosts that you said that you've seen?
Yeah, those are the ones, saying when we stayed in the, but I had a bit of a weird experience outside of my house a few years ago. Do you want to hear about that? Oh, yeah. Right. Right. It was in the winter. So I was driving home from work and it was dark and I turned into the street where we live. Now, our house is on a corner, so you can see it. You can see it from the road and we've got a driveway. And as we came around the corner, I saw there was a woman, and this did look like a real person. This wasn't sort of white or a bit transparent. This just looked like a real person. And I can remember what she was wearing. Now, obviously, it was the winter. She had like a parka black coat on with the hood up, and she had her back to me, so I couldn't see her face or anything like that. And it looked like she had either leggings on or dark coloured jeans and a pair of boots. And this coat that she had on, it looked like it sort of had fur around the hood. She had a hood up because it was a cold day. And the gates to the driveway were open because I park on the drive. And we have a security light outside and it had triggered and come on. So I was coming home from work, pulled around the corner, and she was walking onto the driveway. And I remember thinking, who's that at our house? I didn't recognise her. I didn't know who it was. And I thought, and like I say, because we're on a corner, it's clearly visible from where I was. And I saw her walk onto the drive. And I thought, I wonder who that is at the house. Now, bear in mind, I'm in the car. I'm literally a few seconds away from getting on the drive. I've turned the corner, 5 seconds most. So if she'd come out the driveway and walked away, I would have seen her. So I pulled up the road, pulled onto the driveway. There was nobody there. So I got out of my car. I thought maybe she'd come out and I'd not noticed, but there's no way she could have come out of the drive and gone up the road without me seeing her. She just couldn't have done. So I even actually got out of my car. I walked to the end of the drive. I looked up and down the street to see if she was there. There was nobody. She couldn't have got into the back because it's locked gates. The same with the neighbours' houses. She wasn't at any of the neighbours' houses. And I remember at the time just thinking that was really, really strange. But like I say, the security light had triggered. So there was some kind of emotion that had triggered it to go. So I literally turned the corner. I saw a lady walking up onto the drive. The security light went on. In the few seconds it took me to get up the street and turn onto the drive, she'd gone. I couldn't see her up and down the road. She wasn't at any of the neighbours' houses. She couldn't have got into the back because it's all blocked off. So that was another, that happened about 2-3 years ago, that one, I think.
I was wondering if you would be able to retell the 1991 story again.
Back in 1991, I was 22 years old. I used to go out quite a lot. I had a very close friend called Penny. and she met a guy called John, and he invited us up to stay at his house in a place, it's called Benoldswick. The locals call it Barlick, but it's a place in Lancashire, like a small town. So Friday afternoon, we got the coach and we went up there, and he came and met us at the coach station. We went back to his house where he lived with his mum. We had something to eat, and then we had a night out with his friends. I definitely wasn't drunk, like I've explained. I'm one of these boring people who's basically a teetotal. So if somebody turned around and suggested that I was drunk, I absolutely was not drunk. We were out quite long. We got back in the early hours of the morning. We literally got back, had a cup of coffee, and then went to bed. I ended up sleeping in the attic room. Penny was sleeping on the first floor, so the only other room was the attic room. So I slept in that, which was fine. It wasn't a problem. It was like a Victorian terrace house, which they're built out of stone. So there's your ground floor, your first floor, and then there's the attic room. So I was literally sleeping in the loft kind of thing, so to speak. Although it was summer, it was early hours of the morning, so it was very, very dark. There was only a skylight in the ceiling, but because of the time, there was no light at all. And it was literally, if you put your hand in front of your face, you couldn't see it. It was so dark. So I was very tired. It had been a long day. Literally went to sleep straight away. Next thing I remember, I just woke up very, very suddenly, and that's very unusual for me because I'm a heavy sleeper, and it was almost like somebody had snapped the fingers and I was awake. And I was lying in bed. I always remember it. I had my head resting on my arm because I sleep on my side, and I just looked up, and to my horror, surprise, whatever you want to call it, there was a figure that was leaning over the bed staring at me. I was that startled that I remember jerking back, and there was a wall behind, and I banged my head on the wall because I'd sort of jumped. My heart was just going absolutely 10 to the dozen. I thought, what do? Do I get out of bed and make a run for it? Or do I stay where I am? Because I didn't really know what to do at that time. And then I thought it was the safer option, coward that I am, to stay where I was. I don't know how long the figure was there. It was probably a few seconds. I don't know. And then it just sort of faded away. The impression that I got at the time was that it was a young man, late teens, early 20s. He had dark curly hair. The impression that I got was it was almost like, who are you? Why are you here? That kind of thing, kind of curiosity. I certainly didn't feel threatened or intimidated, or it was just somebody wondering who I was and why I was in their house, possibly. Despite that, I went back to sleep. I didn't experience anything else during that night. The next morning, Penny was in the kitchen making a drink. I came in. She said to me, "How, did you sleep okay last night?" I told her what had happened. I got a bit of a strange look. And I said to her, whatever you do, please don't mention it to John, because obviously you're staying in somebody's house. You don't want them to think you're some sort of a crackpot. So she swore to secrecy. She said she wouldn't say anything. So yeah, the rest of the day was fine. We went out again on the Saturday night. Again, I slept in the attic room. Nothing happened that night. It was just normal. I got in there, went to sleep. The next day, his mother made Sunday lunch for us. And in these old houses, you have a room that they call a parlour, and this room's only used on like Sundays or special occasions. It's a bit of an old-fashioned thing, I think, that the Victorians used to do. So we were in there, and she got like the photographs album out of John and his siblings and stuff when they were children. And there was a photograph with them all on, and he was telling us who they were. And he said, he pointed to a picture, and Penny said, "Oh, who's that on the photograph?" And he said, "That's our Simon." And Penny said, "I don't recall you mentioning him." And he said, "No, he got killed in a motorcycle accident when he was 17. Apparently it happened on his 17th birthday. And he was out on his bike, and it's all sort of country roads. And he went round a bend a bit fast, took it too wide, and there was a truck or something coming the other way. And it killed him outright." And as soon as she said that, I just thought, oh my God, that's who I saw last night. Something just clicked in my mind. I thought that's who, because I remember at the time thinking, like I say, late teens, early 20s, and he was 17 when it happened. But I also found out that when he had the accident, living in that house, they were living in a farmhouse at the time. So they'd actually moved in the time that he'd been killed to where they were living at that time. So he must have followed them. So whether I was possibly sleeping in his bed or whether there was some furniture or something in that room that related to him. But as soon as I just thought, oh my God, that's who it was. And obviously none of us knew anything about this. It happened. I saw him on the Friday night and we found this out on the Sunday. So I had no recollection of his brother or anything like that when the incident actually occurred. And I just remember Penny turned around and just sort of looked at me because I think she thought as well. And I just looked at her as if to say, don't you dare say a word. So was that a bit clearer? Did you?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Now, if you could tell the premonitions one more time, and then I'll be ready to ask you a bunch of questions about all your stories.
Right. So yeah. So it in the house that I lived in before, our next door neighbours had a cat, and one night I had a dream that I went out into the garden and one of my dogs was there, and he had the mouth, and the cat didn't have a head. Are you getting this? Okay. Yeah. So obviously it was a bit of a disturbing dream. You just think it's a dream. You don't really sort of think anything of it. And then it was about a week later, he went out to drive to work, and he went out of the garden, and the next door neighbour's cat was lying in the road with its head taken off. And what we think happened was it was in the winter, and we think the cat had been out and it had been cold. So what they do is they climb onto car engines to try and get warm. And we think that somebody had come out, started the car engine, and a moving part had taken the cat's head off. This was about a week later. And our neighbours had a little girl, and obviously Robert didn't want her to come out and see the cat dead in the street. So he went and got a bag and sort of went and moved the cat. So yeah, again, it was about a week before it happened. When I see these things, it's the time scale is usually a week after I see it to when it happens.
Okay. All right.
And then did you get the one? Yeah, very obscure one, just about my colleague at work when I was talking to her. Did you get that one?
I got some of it. I didn't get to hear the full story. It kept breaking out. So that, and then so that should be the end of those two last premonitions that you tell, and then I'll ask all my questions.
Right. Again, this is a very mundane one, but I was in work. I was chatting to one of my colleagues. She was sat in front of me at a desk. I was stood in front of her, and I was just talking to her. And all of a sudden, I saw all these cards on a desk surrounding her. So I said to her, I said, is your birthday coming up? And she said, it's next week. So obviously something in my subconscious knew that it was a birthday. They weren't actually birthday cards. I didn't see that much detail, but I just saw she was sat at a desk and there were these cards around her. And obviously I didn't know it was a birthday. So yeah, again, it's not about a disaster or anything like that, but it's just another one of those things where you think that was really strange, you know, how that happened. Yeah. Yeah. It had went on holiday to Canada in 1997, and like as a souvenir, my husband bought this glass tankard, really heavy glass tankard, and it had like the maple leaves on it. One day I was in the kitchen and I was stood at the fridge door open, and all of a sudden I saw it in my mind, and his tankard just dropped to the floor and just shattered everywhere, because it's that kind of glass that just shatters. And I just remember thinking, oh no, his tankard's going to break, he's not going to be pleased. And I'm one of these people, I'm a bit clumsy, so I always make sure I just try and stay away from things like that, because I thought he won't be too pleased if it gets broken. So lo and behold, it was a week later. I was in the kitchen, I was stood in the exact same place by the fridge with the fridge door open. Robert walked into the kitchen with his tankard. I'm not quite sure what happened. He went to put it in the sink, but he dropped it and it fell to the floor and it shattered just as I'd seen it happen. Exactly. I saw it happen by the sink, and that was where it just went. And I just remember seeing it fall to the floor and it just went everywhere. But luckily it wasn't me who broke it. So I think that was the first one I actually had. Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So yeah, that was the first time I'd ever had anything like that.
Now, Wendy, I have tons of questions for you. For my first question, let me see. Has anyone else seen Simon in that house? When
I
you were
don't know is the answer to that. I never really had any contact with John after that, because he was like my friend's friend, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation where he liked Penny, but she didn't really like him, and he wanted to go out with her and he didn't. So I think that was as far as it went. So I didn't have any contact with him after that, unfortunately. So I can't answer that one, I'm afraid. I don't know.
Okay. My next question is, what did Simon look like, in description wise? Like,
In
what
the
was he wearing?
photograph?
And when you seen him, when you were alerted and you woke up.
When I saw him,
If you can remember.
I don't think I could really describe what he was wearing, because I just looking at his face rather than what he was wearing. Sort of bent, because he was quite close to me. He was bent over the bed, so his face was quite close, and he was looking at me intently. And I think that's what I remember, really. So I don't really recall what he was wearing. I honestly couldn't say. I mean, I'm assuming he wasn't naked, because I probably would have noticed that. But regarding what clothes, I couldn't tell you. It's not something that I noticed. I just noticed his face, really, and him looking at me. So yeah, I couldn't describe that, sorry.
Okay. Did you hear
I'm assuming it was possibly trousers and a shirt, but that would be a guess. I don't know.
Did you hear any type of like telepathic or mind speak, or him trying to talk to you or communicate?
No, I mean, like I say, it was just like he was curious. What I sort of thought was like, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I always remember thinking, like somebody looking at you, like, who are you? It felt like that. It was like sort of curiosity, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Just
I mean,
looking.
it certainly didn't feel sort of menacing or anything like that. I didn't feel threatened, even though obviously it was quite a frightening experience at the time. Because it's one of those where you look back and think, oh, if only I'd been a bit braver, and maybe. But of course, it sort of happens, and it happens that quick. You don't really, hindsight's a wonderful thing, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, I do remember sort of the words like, who are you? So it almost, I'd say that sort of got in my mind, whether it was telepathic or that was whether the impression that I got.
Okay.
I don't know. And I don't know, maybe because he saw that I was frightened, maybe he disappeared a bit sooner than he would have done normally. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Now, that's your first ever physical ghost you've seen?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
What was going through your mind when being able to see this for the first time ever?
Yeah, it was very. I mean, to be honest, I've always thought. I mean, I had sensed things before, but that was the first time I'd ever actually seen something. So it just, in a way, it was good, because it validated what I sort of already knew, that there were things, and I'd always felt that. Because I'm someone who, I do pick up on energies, and I pick up on vibes. I'm quite in tune with things like that. So yeah, but to actually see something, to validate it, it was. I mean, I look back and I think it was such a positive experience, because I don't care what other people think. I know what I've seen, and I know what I've experienced. And people can laugh and joke and tell me that I was drunk and that I was seeing things. They can do that all they like, but I know different. So I don't really care what other people think. I've seen things, I've experienced things. It doesn't matter what other people say, because I know different. So I don't really care what other people think in that regard. If they want to be closed-minded, and I appreciate that it doesn't happen to everybody. Although I think if you ask enough people and you say, has something happened to you that you can't explain, everyone will have at least one story. Everybody, even those who say that they don't believe in these kind of things for whatever reason. I think some people are maybe a bit frightened to think that there's something think sometimes it is fear, isn't it? You know, it's fear of the unknown. It's fear of things that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that sort of does get that. But then you think, well, surely you've had something that's happened in your life that's made you stop and think, you know what, that was really strange. I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think even people who are very skeptical, they'll have at least one story where they'll think, oh, something happened. Or they might chalk it down to coincidence, or they might think my mind was playing tricks on me or something like that. But yeah. So yeah, it was, I'm glad that it happened. I am glad that it happened. And it's certainly something that I'll never ever forget it. And like I say, it just sort of confirmed what I already knew, that there is a lot more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of, because that's just so true. You know, and I know, like you're saying, you've got Indian in you. I have too. My great grandfather was Lakota Sioux, and I know for a fact that my dad had experiences, and he was one of those who actually saw members of his family before he died.
Man.
Yeah, and he saw a ghost where he worked as well, as like a spirit. So I know that, you know, I know my dad had experiences from well, and I do often wonder if it sort of passes down from that side of the family, you know.
Yeah.
Because we do have sort of heritage.
I kind of wish we knew what's going on, why it's happening.
Yeah, but I don't know. But then if you did know, would it lose its appeal, its sparkle? You know, if you know what it is, if the scientists could explain it, would it then be as, you know, exciting? Or I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the unknown that makes it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you do talk to people and you say, I've had experiences. I mean, I'm obviously I'm older now, so it wouldn't bother me as much that if somebody thought I was a bit loopy or I'd imagined it. I mean, if that's the case, then I'd say, well, you tell me why I don't imagine things all the time. You know, I'm not someone who's frightened of the dark. I wouldn't say I'm of a nervous disposition. So if I imagine things, why does it not happen all the time? You know, if that was the case, surely it would happen a lot more than it does, wouldn't it? Or
yeah.
And you know, I mean, I love visiting. Like I was saying, I've done all these ghost walks in Edinburgh. We were up in Scotland last month visiting castles and things like that. Never once have I had an experience in one of these places. Never. And yeah, I've had it on my own driveway. I've had it when I'm asleep. I've had it in a flat I used to live in. The house that my husband grew up in Wales, there was things going on in that house, his mum's house. That's a story for another day, but he had experiences there. Don't know what to say. It's just, there's a lot more going on than people realise, isn't there? I'm not saying that there aren't people who, saying that, I honestly don't think people lie about it. I think you maybe get charlatans with things like mediums and stuff like that, but I think, you know, where there's maybe money involved and they can, which to be honest, anyone who does that, I think is just absolutely despicable. Yeah. You know, if they're making money out of people who are grieving and things like that, that's awful. But that's very different to talking about an experience that you've had and sharing that with other people and just saying, look, it's not you who's had weird experiences that you can't explain. It happens everywhere. It happens all over the world. It happens in different cultures. It's just something that's universal, isn't it? And there's just something that's really nice about that. You know, whereas sort of years ago, I mean, like I was just saying, what happened? I mean, my dad died back in 1983, a long time ago now. And I don't know when I sort of started hearing about where people before they die, where they're visited by the relatives. But I know it happened to him, and I know it's something that he experienced. But it was before the internet and things like that. So how widely it was known that this experience was very common, I don't know. But I do remember him talking about it, and it was certainly very real to him. And I don't doubt for a second that happened. And I'll be honest with you, if that happens, make sure I got my affairs in order pretty sharpish. I think, oh, you know, this time in a week, I'm probably going to be on the other side, so I better make sure I, you know, sort things out. So if it happened to me, I would definitely, I'd sit up and take notice. I certainly wouldn't chalk it down to that I'd imagined it, or absolutely no. you know, hopefully that won't happen for a long time yet, but
yeah,
who knows? But yeah, it would. I'd think, oh dear, my time's running out. But,
now you was talking about one of your premonitions. It was the one with your husband. What I wanted to know, and so the audience can understand, what is a tankard?
oh, sorry, do you not know what a tankard is? It's like a glass. I mean, you can get them made out of metal as well. It's like a very large drinking glass, and it has a handle on the side.
So like a mug?
Sorry, do you not have tankards in America?
No.
It must be a British term, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big drinking vessel basically, and it's all one size, so it doesn't taper or anything like that. They're either made out of glass, or sometimes they're made out of pewter, so the glass are metal, and they just have a big handle on the side, but they're very heavy.
Okay, so like a tall mug?
Yeah, I suppose like a tall mug is a way to describe it, with like a big handle on the side. But yeah, this was made out of glass.
Okay.
And it's the kind of glass where it just literally shatters. It doesn't just break, it just shatters and goes. And that was, like I say, what I saw.
Now, was that on the table when it shattered, or was it in his hand?
No, it wasn't. It was in his hand, and I'm not quite sure what happened. He went to put it in the sink so it could be washed, and I don't know what happened. Whether he sort of missed the sink or it slipped out of his hand. It just dropped, and it was exactly I'd seen it to the floor, and it just shattered. And I was stood in the exact same place where I was stood by the fridge with the fridge door open, in the exact same place where I'd seen it happen a week before. So yeah, it was like replaying or playing in real time how I'd seen it in my mind the week before. Yeah, and I actually said to him at the time, I saw that happen a week ago. Yeah.
Now, have you had any recent and new premonitions within the last week or two?
No, those are the only ones I've ever had. The only one that is sort of ongoing, and I'm not even sure it would be a premonition, is the one that I was saying, you know, where I used to have this recurring dream about being on point in my front room, and then the dream stopped. Having ballet training. One that's still sort of ongoing, because like I say, that was a recurring dream rather than a premonition, and thought it was, you know, I'm stood in front of where this couch is aside, and we oak floors in our house, so I could quite easily get up on point in our room. You can't do it on carpet. And I'm there, and I'm up on point.
What is that you're talking about? The
point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, when ladies do ballet and they go up on the toes, right up on the toes, and they have special shoes so they can dance on the toes. That's called point.
Okay.
And I'm having training at the moment to be able to do that. I've just literally started training in a pair of point shoes. I'm not actually doing it yet because you have to learn how to dance in the shoe first, because they're very sort of the box that goes over your toes, and you have to get used to how it feels. So you have to actually learn how to dance in them first. But hopefully I should be taking my next exam will be about November, and then when I go into my next grade, then I will start actually going on to point. And yeah, I've like I say, I've had this recurring dream for years where I'm stood in front and I'm saying to my husband, look, I can do it, sort of showing off like you do. And I had that dream for years, and I always thought it's wishful thinking on my part, because adults are pretty much written off in ballet. It's mainly the thing is, if you want to do that, you've got to start training when you're very young, and you know, and it's just not true, to be honest. I started 3 years ago when I was 49. I mean, fair enough, I've got a background in figure skating, so I've always been quite, I'm quite fit. I can ride and stuff as well. That's a bit of another thing, but yeah. And it was only 3 years ago that I started having lessons, but the dreams actually stopped before then. And I've not had the dream since I started training. So it's not even like I can say, well, I'm doing training now and I know that I'm going to be able to do it, because the dreams were long before I was ever having lessons. So it's, and like I say, I thought it was wishful thinking, because it was one of these things I'd always dreamed about doing it. I'd wanted to do it from being a small child, and I'd never got the chance to have that training when I was young. And I never thought I would get to do it. And as it's worked out, you know, I've found a teacher who sort of takes adults seriously, and she's putting me through the training. And I am going to be able to do it. But at the time I was having this dream, I just assumed it was sort of wishful thinking. So you do sort of wonder, was the universe trying to tell me something? Was the universe saying, don't worry about your dream because one day you're going to be able to do it? You know? Yeah, it's just odd, isn't it? And at some point, I'm going to get home and I'm going to do it in that spot and just see if anything happens. You know, whether I get that feeling. I think, yes, this was the dream that I had.
Kind of like a deja vu.
Deja vu is a bit of a different thing, isn't it? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Actually thinking about it, it could be. I've never thought of it like that. But thinking about it, it could be, couldn't it?
Yeah, I've had some of that happen to me before. And then like while it's happening, I close my eyes and can say, it's only happened one really great time when I was younger. I closed my eyes and I was like saying what was going to happen. And I got to do that for like maybe 2 minutes. And then it all played out. Like I seen it in my head as the deja vu was happening. I just thought that was so cool. And, you know, you never know, because when it comes to like time, we see it as linear, but it's all past, present, future running at the same time.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you have all these parallel universes that are all over the place. They're all, you know, they're all intertwined and they're all going at the same time. So, you know, you might even be looking into, you know, another you that's doing the exact same stuff. There's just one like one little detail that's off. And so you're like tapping into that to kind of see what's going to happen. And what's crazy is it actually happens, you know, to you. So makes you interesting to think if you have some kind of like psychic abilities or anything that can kind of tune in with other frequencies or.
Yeah, you do wonder, don't you? It's it's all very strange, and it does. Yeah, I don't know. It just makes you wonder about things. I mean, I wasn't brought up particularly religious, but I do have. There's definitely something there with me, and I don't quite understand it, and I don't understand how it comes into religion, if you know what I mean. I definitely believe in something, because I think there is something on the other side of that. I'm definitely certain, but I'm not quite sure how it fits in to sort of organized religion, if you understand what I mean. I mean, I'll sit here and I'll think I'm not particularly religious, but when I got married, it was very important for me to have a religious ceremony and to get married in a church. So I think, well, if I think that there's absolutely nothing there and I don't, then why was it so important for me to have that? I went on holiday to Iceland a couple of years ago and I bought a Celtic cross. And my dad used to wear a Celtic cross and I'd wanted one for a while. And I was on holiday in Iceland and I saw one and I saw a really nice one. And I thought, I'm going to buy that. And I don't wear it. I don't wear it. It's lovely. But I've got it upstairs and it's on my dressing table and I really like it. So I'm not quite sure where religion fits into it. I don't know. I mean, I suppose everybody likes to think that, you know, that you go to something better and that you see people that have gone, people that you've loved. It's all nice to think that you will see them again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, you sort of think, is it just wishful thinking, or is there something? But the answer to that is nobody actually knows, do they? You know, it's.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it's nice to know that there is something else. It isn't just you're born, you have your life, and then you die. There's definitely other things going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nice thing about maybe being in tune with things and having experiences, that you know that, you know, you're not just reading maybe things that have happened to other people and thinking, well, you know, I'm not quite sure about that, because you've experienced it yourself. So you know, you don't have that doubt in your mind. You don't have somebody maybe trying to convince you, or because you know, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or says.
Yeah, it's all based on your own
you know different. Yeah, and I mean, I do understand that it takes for you to have an experience. I mean, I've read lots of stories and heard about people, because I'm certainly very interested in the paranormal, and I always have been. And the amount of times where you hear the people say, I would never have believed it until it happened to me. You get people like in the military, people who work in prisons, like these big tough men who probably never in a million years have admitted that they've had an experience. And then something happens to them and it completely changes the whole perspective, doesn't it? But they're always the ones I think are really interesting, because you think, well, if something's happened to them and they thought, oh, then obviously it's been something quite major, hasn't it? Not something that you can maybe think, oh, well, it was a bit of a dark night and I maybe saw shadows, or it was a reflection, or it was, maybe I was a bit tired and it was that. They've had a major experience which has just completely changed their perspective of things.
I think you should check out near-death experiences on YouTube. You'd probably be very interested in their stories, because it's all positive stuff. There ain't no negative. It's all like, it's pretty much your beliefs. Whatever your beliefs are, when you die, you manifest it. Just like here, we manifest things, but it's slow. This place that we, that we're living, everything happens, but it happens very slowly. And then when you die, the way you think, it happens faster. So it's like a manifestation of what you feel and think. It's just like moving up into the next life. We're this spiritual being having a human experience. Well, then we get to have an experience of what it's like after we die, to be in another kind of realm world where, we're with other spirits and stuff that are the same as us. And I mean, there's nothing evil or bad that's going to happen to us. Of course, there's evil things out there, but that doesn't mean it's going to be something that can, hurt you. In the long end, you are the strongest. You are the universe. You are everything. So, you manifest, you think, and you believe these things. Every entity, if you have these parallel universes, you've been them all. You've been every kind. You've been the negative ones, the good ones, the godly ones. You're trying these experiences to learn so much. And when you look at these evil entities, you just look at, like, you or me, I am you, and that's it. You can't fear something because you don't understand it as much as we all do as a human body. But I think you really like the near-death experiences. I have listened to a few of them, and I had one person, his name's John. He came on and he told the most amazing, incredible near-death experience I've ever heard. And he got to tour the afterlife stuff and talk to people. Yeah, you need to watch that one.
I can't imagine. Is this on your actual YouTube? I'll definitely have to watch. To be honest, I have seen quite a few on YouTube, and I have read books about NDEs, and I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating. Yeah. And that must be the most amazing experience, must it? To go through that and just know, because you do get a lot of people who are frightened, don't you, dying?
Yeah.
And I suppose everybody does. You wonder. I mean, like, I'm 52 now, and my dad died at 57.
Yeah.
So when I turned 50, that was actually quite a sobering experience, because I think, what if I die at the same age, as my dad? I mean, when I look back, like, my dad was a heavy smoker. I do RAD Bally kind of thing, so I can't really compare my life with his, if you know what I mean. But I mean, he was, in his youth, he was an ex-Royal Marine, he was in the RAF initially, flying, Spitfires and Hurricanes kind of thing. So yeah, it's, I can't really draw parallels on that, I suppose. But it does, it sort of makes you wonder. And then I sort of think, I didn't have a great relationship with him. When I die, is he going to be there? Is it going to be awkward? I mean, he died when I was very young anyway. But you do sort of, and I think, I'll get to see all my dogs again. That'd be wonderful, because you do get people who say about that.
Yeah.
And so, if you sort of think that you make your own experience of it, it's. I mean, I say about religion, I don't agree with this sort of heaven and hell thing. I don't think if you're a naughty person, you go to hell.
Yeah.
I don't think it quite works like that. I don't know. It's. Yeah, and I sort of do believe in karma, so I'm not quite sure how that fits in. I do think people reap what they sow. I think they get what they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Do you believe in karma? Or
I actually did. A lot of my stuff's spiritual, but then I end up looking into more and more near-death experiences, and people that have had like 5 near-death experiences, and I keep finding out as I go deeper that the things that we believe, even like such as karma, these are all things that we're thinking. We're all stuck in this way of thinking. And if we can kind of stop thinking like we're going to be put into some type of box, then we won't be limited to things. If we have an open mind and we see like things as they are and just kind of like, just look at them, notice them, analyze them, and move on. Other than that, I don't think, we're not going to we're only torturing ourselves if we have regrets, doubts,
I completely relate to that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like this is a hell. If we're living, any type of hell, this would be the one we're in right now. This is the one that we have to learn the hardest. We're learning loss. We're learning, grief. We're learning pain. It's the biggest one, and fear. So I mean, once this is done, that should be gone. Then most of it will be lifted from you. They say when people die, they no longer feel any kind of stress or fear or anxiety. They feel peace because all that, it's like the weight's been lifted. So that's why I'm going towards. I'll definitely send you the video of John's near-death experience for you to listen to, because it could really change the way that not even change the way, because you have your own way of thinking, but it definitely enhanced the way and the way that you think and what you want to know about the afterlife. When he died and he went there, and I really love his story. It's really cool. Now I do just have a couple more questions for you, and then we'll go ahead and have you do the closing comments. For my one of my other questions, you mentioned about the entity that looks similar to like a monk or a reaper. What do you think that was?
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, like I say, it was a 16th century cottage, so it was a very old building. Whether it was anything related to that building, I've no idea. I would say it was probably more like a monk than, because you think of the Grim Reapers having the scythe and that kind of thing, don't you? And he didn't have anything like that. I'm saying he was just sort of stood in the doorway, and it was almost like his head was bent over so you could just see the cowl, and he didn't move. He was just sort of, I suppose he could maybe be a bit more possible like a guardian, just the way he was stood there. Again, it didn't feel sort of menacing or anything like that, but we did both see it, and it was one of these things where you're thinking, is it just sort of a shadow in the room, or? But it was definitely like a figure. It wasn't a shadow. I didn't feel any vibes or kind of messages or anything like that coming from it. So maybe it was just sort of some sort of a guardian, or maybe standing guard.
What is that? What it was doing? Just standing guard, or was it?
It was stood in the doorway of the kitchen, and it was a large figure. So, but again, this is an old building, so I suppose that the door frames aren't like they are in sort of probably larger buildings. It was just sort of just stood, didn't move. And it was, you only really sort of noticed it at night when all the lights and stuff were out. And like I say, you sort of think, is it a shadow? But it definitely wasn't a shadow. It was like a figure wearing some sort of a cassock or a robe. Yeah, like I say, it didn't feel threatening or menacing or anything like that, not at all. It was just sort of stood there. Yeah.
Now, what do you think the scratching that you were hearing on the walls? What do you think that was?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, Robert heard that more than me, because I'm sort of quite a heavy sleeper, and I remember him saying that he was hearing scratching the walls during the night. And I said, do you think maybe it's like rats or something? Because there was a Loch Almond was outside, like a big river. Well, it's a lake actually, not a river. That's what they call in Scotland. They call them lochs. It was this Loch Almond. And so I thought maybe it's rats or voles or something from the river. And he said the walls in this cottage are solid and the floors are solid. So he said there's nothing in any cavities anywhere. So we didn't know what it was, but he heard it. We were there for a week, and he heard it quite a lot, scratching. So we don't actually know what was causing it. But like I say, there couldn't have been anything in the walls because the wall was solid stone.
Wow.
So yeah, we don't actually know.
How long did you hear it for?
I'd have to ask Robert about that. I think he heard it in sort of all the time we were there. We stayed there for a week, so we were there for 7 days. And I know he heard it a few times, because I think it actually woke him up. He's one of these people. He's a very light sleeper. I'm the opposite. I'm a very heavy sleeper, and it did wake him up a few times. And he said, I hear scratching in the walls, and he said, but It can't be in the walls because the walls are solid.
Yeah.
So yeah. Mm.
What you said that you experienced, you believe, seeing your mother, I believe, and she said that her eyes were empty. What do you think she meant by that? Like,
I know that I know that when my mother was blind in one eye from birth. So when it came up, because it's a ghost app on his phone, and first of all he said, I think he said, "Who are you?" or "What's your name?" and it came up with Alice. Now, like I say, Alice was my mum's name, and Robert didn't know that. He didn't know that my mum was called Alice. And then he said something like, "What do you want?" or "Why are you here?" And it came up on the screen. It said, "My eyes are empty." Excuse me. And when she said that, I remember. Like I say, I remember that she was blind in one eye. Whether it was something to do with that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've no idea, but yeah, when she said that, it just made me think of that, that she was blind in one eye, and maybe that was her way of letting me know that it was her. But that very same night was when the snow globe moved on my dressing table.
Yeah.
So I actually think that was her, and I think it was possibly her when I saw the corner of the towel moving in the bathroom as well. I think it's my mum.
Okay.
But Robert as well, he experienced one night, it was a few years ago, he experienced the smell of cigarette smoke in our bedroom. Neither of us smoke. There were no windows open, so it couldn't, and it was the early hours of the morning anyway, so I very much doubt anyone would have been outside smoking, but the window wasn't open.
Yeah.
But I think that could have possibly been his mother. I'm saying that it might have been mine because my mother was a smoker, but his mum was a heavy smoker as well. And he said he just woke up one night and he could smell cigarette smoke in the room. So we've also got the orbs on some of our wedding photos.
Really?
Yeah. And it's one of these, yes, fair enough, we got married in a church. Well, you all right, Maya? You give me a kiss? One of my dogs is here. Yeah, you're all right. Probably wondering who I'm talking to because the house is empty, but you as well. All right. Yeah, just give me a minute. No, stay there. Oh dear, here we go. Bones, get down. Get down. No,
now,
come on.
You mentioned
about
a woman with a fur hood.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you think she was, and what time was it when you seen this figure?
Right, it wouldn't have been that late because it was dark because it was the winter. I think it was about February when it happened. And in the UK, obviously, it's still the very dark evenings. We don't start it really getting light until about April time, where that's when we start getting the longer days. And I was working in Manchester. I used to finish at 5:30. So then by the time I got to my car, so you're probably looking at about 6 p.m, 6:15 in the evening. So not sort of late at night or anything like that, but it was dark. There was nobody else about. Who it was, I don't know. I've no idea. I got the impression that she was. I didn't see her face because she had her back to me, but she was quite small. I mean, I'm sort of 5'8". I'm quite tall. She was quite small. She was very slender, a bit like myself. Who it was, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't someone I'm familiar with. She had modern clothing on. Like I say, she had like a pair of like long leather, long boots. She looked like she had either leggings on or dark jeans, and she had like a parka coat with the hood was drawn up. But obviously, with it being a cold day, you don't really think anything of that. And it looked like it had fur around the hood, but she did have a back to me. And I came around the corner, and she literally stepped off and walked up our driveway, and the light came on, the security light. And I just remember thinking, who's that at the house?
Yeah.
And it would have took me about 5 seconds. I could tell it was definitely our driveway because it's on a corner and you can see it from the corner of the road. So I didn't mistake it for somebody else's house. It was definitely ours. It would have took me 5 seconds at the longest to get from the end of the road to outside the house. So there's no way that she could have come out and gone somewhere else without me seeing her.
Yeah.
And I carried on driving, and I pulled onto the drive, and there was nobody there. And I thought, because at first I thought, did I get it wrong? Has she gone to one of the neighbours' houses? there was nobody on their step. She couldn't have gone through into the back garden because we've got a gate with a lock on it, so she wouldn't have been able to get through. If she'd come out and gone up the road, I would have seen her. I mean, I even got out my car, went to the gate, and I had to look up and down to see if I could see her somewhere up and down the road. There's nobody there. And like I say, it was literally, so she wouldn't have had time to maybe knock on someone's house, go in their house. And even the night after, I got round the corner and I stopped the car, and I thought, was it definitely our driveway? And it was. I thought, there's no way I've mistaken that for somebody else's. It was definitely ours. So I've no idea who that was. But because again, it's one of these where you always think afterwards and you think, am I missing something? Was it something obvious that I didn't get? Am I reading more into it than there was? But I haven't got an explanation for it. I honestly haven't. I can only say what I saw.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the neighbours on both sides, all the gardens are sort of off to the back, so it's not somebody who could have. You can't, you know, you don't just have access to the back. People have the fences and the gates. So, like I say, it was literally a few seconds from me turning the corner to pulling onto the drive. So if she'd gone anywhere, I would have seen her, and she definitely didn't come off the drive because I would have seen her. I saw her going onto it. Like I say, it was that it triggered the security light, which is motion censored.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Why do you think all this supernatural experiences surround you?
I don't know. I mean, I'm like you. I've got a bit of native Indian heritage in my veins. I have often wondered if it's possibly come from that. I know that my dad had some experiences, so I sometimes think it does get passed down through the family. So I think it's possibly come because it was his grandfather who was the Lakota Sioux.
Okay.
Yeah, it does make me wonder if it's come from sort of his side. I don't know. I think some people are just more open to it. I don't know. I think maybe people's brains are wired a bit differently, and they're able to pick things up that other people don't. I think some people just don't want to acknowledge that there is anything. You know, because like I say, I mean, you talk to most people and say, right, well, you tell me one incident in your life where something's happened and you can't explain it. And they can generally give you at least one story, even people who are skeptical. And they might even say, oh, I'm not quite sure. You know, well, that happened and I'm not sure about that. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But I mean, it's like Robert's boss where he works. I mean, he had an experience with a Ouija board years ago. And he's completely skeptical. He doesn't believe any of it. Yet he had this experience with a Ouija board that frightens him to this day. And he's got no explanation for it. But according to him, things like that don't happen. Yeah, it happened to him.
What happened?
A glass came off the Ouija board and smashed against a wall. And nobody had hold of it. And apparently it was him and a group of his friends were, I don't know if they'd had a bit to drink, they were mucking around one night, thought it was, I mean, I could probably get a few more details. I remember him telling it. I mean, obviously I'm sort of hearing it third hand. But he told Robert about it, and he was sort of like, oh, I don't believe any of that. You know, he's one of these, it's all a load of rubbish, blah, blah. And then he tells him about this experience that he had with a Ouija board. And from what I can gather, it was him and a group of his friends, and they were just decided that they were having a bit of a muck about one night. So not sure if they made a Ouija board or it was one that one of them had. And it had a glass on it. And apparently the glass started moving on its own. Went up off the board and flew into the wall and smashed, and they were all absolutely terrified. But according to him, what are you doing? One of the other dogs there. It's all right, go on. Yeah, but according to him, you know, that's a load of rubbish. Things like that don't happen. So it's like, well, how can you explain it? Well, I can't. Well, then you saw it happen. How can you then say that you don't believe in stuff like that when you've experienced it? And I think some people are like that. I think some of them, no matter what, they're just going to say, well, don't be silly, things like that don't happen, even if they see it with their own eyes. I think some people, but then you get other ones, like you say, where they say, well, unless it happened to me, I would never have believed it. People who are completely skeptical, and then they have an experience, and then they do a complete about turn. I think, oh my God, these things do happen because I've seen it. But yeah, I don't know, maybe in the same way that some people can paint beautiful artworks, some people are very good at languages, some people are great with animals. I think some people just have that ability to be able to tune in, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I don't know. Maybe if you've got a bit more of an open mind, possibly makes you a bit more open to it. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Who knows?
All
Yeah.
right.
One of the great mysteries of the universe.
I agree with you. Wendy,
Yeah.
I appreciate you for coming on. Before we
You're
end
very
our
welcome.
episode, could you give any closing comments or advice for anybody that could be going through similar experiences or having experiences of their own?
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is there is more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of, and don't ever allow anyone to turn around and say that you've imagined it, or that you were drunk, or some other explanation. You will know in your own mind if you've experienced something that you've got no explanation for. Don't ever listen to anybody who doubts you. Don't be afraid of talking about it, because talking about it can help other people who are maybe going through something similar. You know, if you've had a bad experience, don't be afraid to get people to come and help you. You know, sometimes just talking about it does help. You know, it's great to go on forums and read about people who've had experiences, or even something like on here where you can actually share that. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel that there's anything wrong with you because you experience these things. It's perfectly natural. Don't ever let anybody tell you any different. And in a way, embrace it, because you've had these amazing experiences that maybe other people don't get. You know that there are things on the other side. You know that there are things that that science can't explain. So just embrace it and use it as a positive experience. Don't think of it as something negative. You know, it could be that a loved one who's trying to let you know that they're still around. You know, it can be things like that. It can be something wonderful. It's not always something bad. So yeah, just embrace it, and just let these things happen. Don't be frightened by it. Although I'll be the first to admit, when certain things have happened to me, it has scared me a bit. But yeah, you just have to think of it as something that's great that's happened to you. That's all I can say, really. I don't know how else to put it, really. But
all right, okay. Well, Wendy, I appreciate you for coming on, and I know the audience enjoyed listening to you and your stories.
I hope
I'd
so.
like to have you back on again sometime to probably,
Yeah.
you know, if you want to tell any more of your stories and your husband's stories, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you about his mum's house in Wales sometime, because there were a few strange things going on in there. He sort of grew up in a haunted house, but yeah, to be honest, I don't think he'd come on here and talk about it. But yeah, I know sort of enough of it that, you know, obviously I would be able to relate to you, although you would be hearing it a bit secondhand. But I do
That's
know
okay.
of the things that happened in that house. Some of them are quite interesting. But yeah, we'll save that for another time. But
Cool. All right.
yeah.
That'd be great. I'd love to hear it. Even if it's
Mm.
secondhand, I don't mind, because it's coming from somebody you know.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, Wendy, for coming on.
No problem.
Thank you guys for watching. It's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters, and we'll see you guys later. See you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.